Well, thank you everyone for joining us again here on our 2022 webinar series. Today we're covering the topic of self-care, and this is a topic that I have been exploring for the last 10 years, and mainly because I didn't really have much self-care in my life all my younger years, and it really did a lot of damage on me in my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And so I started my healing journey, like I said, 10 years ago, and it's really been a journey of discovery. And so I know what it's like to not have self-care for myself, the effects that happen as a result of that, and also the journey of walking through wholeness to find that aspect of myself. And so I'm glad that you joined us this week, and I look forward to just sharing my heart with you all. So I'll just share a little bit about NOSA. Our mission is to offer support and resources and healing to those struggling with mental health concerns. And I know that the mental health arena is quite significant. I mean, it covers anything from anxiety to depression, suicide, and it can go deeper into more extensive problems like schizophrenia or all those other things, or even addiction. But my whole hope and my goal is to offer supports to people who are struggling with those kind of issues. And and my goal is to bring more and more people alongside Connie and myself. We're so far the team to work with us to help people in these areas. And I know, like for myself, I haven't had significant issues with addiction, but I know a lot of people that have overcome that. And so I want to create a team around me of people that have overcome in all sorts of areas that can journey with others to find wholeness and healing in these areas. And so if at any point during your process you feel like, you know what, this is something that I've really overcome in my life, and I would really like to journey with others to help them find wholeness too, feel free to contact us, because we're always looking for other mentors to grow with us and to journey with us to helping others heal and succeed in their life. Our process is to journey with others through mentorship. And the reason why I chose mentorship as the main avenue for walking with people is I've just really found that when you have someone who's journeyed the same path as you, and they're farther along in their journey than you, then they know where you're at. They can identify with where you're at, but they also know where you need to go. And they can see maybe ahead of where you are right now. They can even see maybe the obstacles that lay before you. And so it's so invaluable to have mentors who walk with you in these areas of struggle. And we do this through one-on-one mentoring and also group mentoring. And I just look forward to continually offering opportunities for others to get together with like-minded people, sometimes struggling in the same issues, and find that community and find that support that they need to move forward. And my real strategy or vision is to really focus on one person at a time, because I truly believe that when we meet one person's need, when we can bring change and impact one person at a time, it's going to impact many generations to come. And I know for myself, the freedom that I have found, it's impacting my children, and it's going to impact their children, and it's impacting my extended family as well. And so we know that we can't meet everyone in this world, but we know that we can meet the one person that God brings along in our path. And we're doing that with intention, we're doing that with purpose, and we're doing it with the hopes and the desired outcome that they find healing and wholeness. I'm excited to share with you that the online store that we have been selling some products for, we're actually going to take it to the streets in an upcoming marketplace. This is actually taking place at the church that I attend right now. And it's happening November 19th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So if you want to come out and check out what we're doing, and also some other women entrepreneurs from Southside Victory Church, I'd love to have you join us. It's Saturday, November 19th from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. I believe Connie will be there selling her books, and I will also be there selling the products for NOSA to support the work that we do. So I'd love to see you out there. Come support us and the other vendors that will be there. One of the greatest values of mentors is their ability to see ahead what others cannot see and to help them navigate a course to their destination. I really liked this picture because normally people would just see a road leading to somewhere. But I noticed in this picture, like, it was strange. There's a tombstone on the side of the road. And also farther down the road, there's an oncoming car coming towards them. And I thought it was kind of reminiscent of this quote here. It's because not only in life do we all journey on a path, but we don't always know what's coming. We don't always see ahead. We don't always notice the ins and the outs of what we're going through. But someone who's been there before can see things that maybe we have missed, right? And so I just thought it was kind of cool. And if you can also look into the far left-hand corner, it looks like there's even a water tower back there, right? And so it's just reminiscent of the fact that when you're going through your stuff, right, you're just focused on the road. You're focused on your journey, but you might not see some of the pitfalls that are on your way. You might not even see some of the blessings along the way. And so having someone in your life who's journeyed this path before just makes all the difference in the world. This is the outline for what I want to cover tonight. I want to talk about why is self-care important? What are some of the obstacles that stand in our way? Or what has stood in my way? And I'm sure some of them will be the same for you. What are some strategies for implementing self-care? And if you're successful at doing this, what could some of the results be for you? And then we'll have an activation and then open it up for question and answer or discussion. And then we'll just close out the evening in prayer. So the first question is, what is self-care? And I know it's pretty self-explanatory, but oftentimes when you think about this term, the first thing that comes to mind is kind of, at least when I used to think about this word, I would think, oh, well, self-care, that's just so selfish, right? I'm just focused on me. It's inward focused. But the actual definition is the practice of taking action to preserve or to improve one's own health. It's also the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness in particular during periods of stress. So yeah, self-care is just about learning how to take care of yourself. And I love this saying, self-care is about learning to listen to yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit, and bring yourself enough to give each part what it needs to heal. And so in my journey of healing from burnout, this was one of the biggest things I learned. And I write a lot about this in my upcoming book called Finally Free, which I'm hopefully going to be releasing here in hopefully the spring of 2023. But just the importance of, first of all, recognizing the needs, not just for your mind and your spirit, but your body. And also learning how to listen to those aspects of who you are. Because like you might think, well, you can easily know your emotions. You can know when you are feeling overwhelmed. You know easily when you're feeling angry. You know easily when you've just had enough. But do we always recognize what our bodies are telling us? And I know for myself, for years, I ignored what my body was telling me. And for years, everything that I ignored, it got a little bit worse, and it got a little bit worse until the point where I couldn't ignore what my body was trying to tell me any longer. And so learning to have self-care is really learning how to listen to yourself. Learn to listen to your body and your mind and your spirit when they're saying, you know what, we have just had enough. We need to be cared for. We need some love. We need to find healing, and we need to find restoration. So why is self-care important? This picture, I'm sure we all recognize it. It's a flight attendant in an airplane getting ready to take off. And what they always tell you at the start of your flight is that in the event that there's an emergency and your oxygen is required, you must put on your oxygen mask first before applying it to those who need assistance. And this is so important. And I think this is probably one of the most clear examples and applications that we can put for self-care. Because honestly, if we don't take care of ourselves first, then we are not equipped, we are not able to clearly and efficiently help others. And, you know, in the instance of like the situation in an aircraft, if we're frantically trying to put oxygen on everyone else, but the oxygen in the room has plummeted to the point where we can't bring in oxygen anymore, then we pass out. We no longer have the ability to help anyone. And that's kind of what it's like when we always put other people first and we're never taking care of ourselves. We're going to lose the ability to function ourselves. So when I'm talking about self-care and all of these things, I want you to just have that in the back of your mind. Like, you know, like this oxygen mask, you need to take care of yourself first. And this, like I said already, it's not a selfish thing. This is you protecting the most valuable asset you have, which is you. The consequences of not having self-care in your life, and these, I'm going to read off a list, and these ones are ones that I experienced, and this is not the full list by any means. And maybe if you're walking through this the same as I am or had, maybe you have some of these too, and maybe you have some other ones. But these are the ones that I experienced. When I didn't prioritize self-care, I experienced a lot of stress and anxiety. And I found that even my ability to handle stress was diminished greatly. I wasn't able to handle all the things that were coming at me because I just didn't have anything left. There was also incredible physical fatigue, tiredness, and not being able to rest, not being able to sleep. And you would think if you are physically fatigued, well, then you should be able to fall asleep, no problem, right? But that's not how it is. That's not reality. When we are so depleted, our bodies actually have difficulty falling asleep, or at least for me, I did. I also had difficulty concentrating. It would be like I had this task to take care of, but I just couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate on what I had to do. And in fact, oftentimes I would completely forget very basic information or basic tasks that I had to do. For me, probably one of the biggest and most problematic consequences of my lack of self-care was the physical sickness and disease it brought onto me. And I suffered with chronic pain for over 8 years because of my lack of self-care and because of this journey that I was on. Another thing that it did for me is I had mental and emotional breakdowns. You know, just not being able to handle the stresses, not being able to cope with the everyday things happening in my life. Reduced performance and productivity. You know, at one point, you know, when I was early in the stages, you know, and this is kind of what fed into my lack of self-care, but, you know, I could do it. I could do a lot, right? And so, you know, you just keep on doing, and you get this mentality that you can do everything. But then as you get more and more burnt out, your performance and your ability to do the tasks that you once did becomes depleted. And that's what happened for me. I just started to not be able to perform. I wasn't able to get the things done that I wanted to. And every day I kind of felt like a failure. You may also experience worsening mental health symptoms. That can be anything from anxiety, depression. Maybe you have thoughts of hopelessness. Maybe you even are struggling with hating yourself, having self-loathing thoughts, like, when you're not capable of keeping up with everyone else, it just causes you to really question your value and your worth. And ultimately, for me, it led to a complete burnout. A burnout in my physical being, my spiritual and my emotional self. And I to this day, I'm extremely thankful for my sister who stepped in and really helped me through this season. And last but not least is just hopelessness. When you're deep, deep, deep in the thick of it all, sometimes it's hard to see past it and to have hope for your future. And I really struggled with a lot of hopelessness in this time as well. I love this saying. I don't know who wrote it, but an empty lantern provides no light. Self-care is the fuel that allows your light to shine brightly. And so, imagine yourself as this lantern, right? You were designed to shine. You were designed to be a beautiful reflection of who God is in the earth and to magnify the gifting that He's given you. But if you aren't prioritizing self-care in your life, you're not going to have the fuel to be that light. You're not going to have the energy and the stamina to do the purposes that God has for you in this life. And so I just really, really loved this saying. It just clearly shows the value and the purpose behind self-care and really taking care of who you are. And another scripture just came to mind is your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, right? And so God has called us, has commissioned us to really take care of ourselves, not only in our physical and spiritual well-being, but also in our physical bodies. So you might say, I know what it looks like to not have self-care because, that's what we're always doing. We're always caring for others. We're always pouring out. We're always doing all these things. But what would it look like for me to really prioritize self-care? And so these are just some things that I relate to when it comes to what self-care looks like for me. But for you, it might be something different. And some things that I do, I don't even have on this list, but here are some of them. Take a step back. When you're in the thick of it all, allow yourself to just take a step back and look at your life, look at even the circumstance that you're going through. Let yourself look at it from another perspective. Because if you're just in it, it's sometimes hard to see past the struggle. It's sometimes hard to see past the thing that's right in front of you. Another thing that self-care could look like is to ask for help. For me, that was the first step to my healing journey, was when I asked for help. I realized that I couldn't do this on my own. I realized that I had gotten myself so deep that there was no way for me to get out without help. And so when you find yourself struggling, when you find yourself, I'll use the word desperate, or you don't know how to make your next step, that's the time for you to start asking for help. And I would recommend you to even ask for help far before that happens. For me, because I'm an introvert, spending time alone is a really huge picture of what self-care looks like for me. And I mean, for anyone who really knows my life, you know that I have a very busy life. We have a very full home. I've got 5 boys at home, teenage boys from the ages of 13 to 19, and we live in a small farmhouse. I don't get any space to myself. It's hard for me to find time alone. And so for me, really, self-care is me taking time away from the bustle and all of the work and all of the kids and everything that is needed of me, and to just find time alone. You might also need to put yourself first. And this plays out in many different ways. You know, even with my children, sometimes it's like, you know what, I know that you have this need, but I need to take care of this first. And it's something that's going to fuel me, and it's something that's going to help me be a better mom, be a better wife, be a better friend. And so sometimes before other priorities, other things that you normally do, or maybe you want to step into, maybe you need to put yourself first before you do those things, so that you are energized and you are refreshed, so you can do that the way that you need to. Another way you can have self-care is to ask for what you need. There's another scripture that comes to mind right now. It's in James, and it says, you do not get what you need because you do not ask, right? And how many times, you know, do we need things and we don't ask, right? And so I've actually purposed in my heart to ask God for the things that I need. But I think this one goes even farther than that, because God answers my prayers for those things, but also asking those in your life, right? For too many years, I was the yes woman. I was the one who did everything for everyone, right? And I've had to get to the point where I've started saying to my family, especially, you know, right now, mom needs this.
In progress.
Right now, mom needs this. I need you to give me some space, or I need you to, you know, start picking up after yourself, you know, to start being honest, and not, you know, because when I used to do everything for my kids, in the background, I would, you know, be quietly getting, what's the word? Angry or resentful, you know, but it was my own fault because I wasn't telling people what I needed them to do. And so it's okay for you to express what you need others to do, especially when it has something to do with their own responsibilities. Another thing would be setting boundaries. I for too many years allowed people to walk all over me, to put their own issues on me. And so I had to clearly understand what it means to put up a boundary, and how to keep those, and how to truly maintain, you know, this is me and that's you, and, you know, they don't have to intermingle, right? And so for you, I'm not in whatever situation you're feeling, like if you're starting to feel like someone's encroaching on, you know, your time and your space and who you are, there's probably an indication there that you need to set up some more boundaries. Another thing could be staying at home. If you find that you're always out and about, always going here and there, you're always, you know, at a school PTA meeting, or at 5 meetings a week, or you're constantly out, part of self-care for you might just to be stay at home, might just be to sit on the couch with your family and watch a movie, to not have anything calling you, not have anything required of you, just to be. And for some of us, that might be hard because, you know, we've kind of used the busyness of life as a distraction. But staying at home could be what self-care looks like for you. Saying no without feeling the need to explain why. This was another huge one for me, because people would always say, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? And I would always say yes, because I didn't feel like I had the permission to say no. And my counselor really taught me how to say no without needing to explain myself. And it made all the difference in the world. And so if you know that there's something you're not called to do, it's okay to say no. Another huge one is forgiving yourself. For years and years, I held myself to a higher standard than everyone else, and I had a hard time forgiving myself for my failures. And maybe you relate to that. Maybe that's something you struggle with. This next column are some more practical things that I do on a regular basis that are self-care for me. I take time to exercise. I like reading good books. I retreat. I do things that I love to do. I spend time with those who energize me. I choose to eat healthy, nourishing meals. I absolutely love being in nature, and I love spending time with God. And so as we continue in today, we're going to be really delving a little bit deeper and looking into, well, what is it that self-care looks like for you? Because it might look a little different than me. Maybe you're an extrovert. Maybe you love water skiing. Maybe you love adventure. Maybe for you, self-care would be like to go skydiving. Now, I can't understand why anyone would like that because that would terrify me, but maybe that's you. Maybe adventure is your thing. Maybe that's what just sparks life in you. And so we're going to be really thinking about those things, about, you in your life, who you are, who God created you to be. What is it that you need? And how does your self-care look? Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I put this scripture in here because when I look back in my most difficult and darkest times, I always cried out to God, and this scripture was true for me every single time. Whenever I was willing and vulnerable and honest enough to take my burdens to the Lord, he always exchanged it. He always took my yoke of heaviness and he exchanged it for something light. He always showed me the way out. He always gave me peace in the midst of my storm. And so this is a promise from God to us, that no matter what you're going through right now, you can take it all to him. And he's not only got the answers for you, but he also has the peace, the rest, the solace that you need, no matter what it is that you're facing at this time. So most of you, I think, except for Glenda, probably, you were at the retreat. So some of the stuff I've just shared, you already know about. But the one thing I didn't share, and the one thing that even in the last couple of days for myself, and I know for a few people, they've already come to the place where they're facing obstacles to them really walking into a new life of self-care. And so I wanted to address this a little bit today because it is a huge thing that stops us from pursuing this in our lives. And oftentimes when we start to make these changes, that's when we feel the most opposition. That's when we feel the most pushback. And there would be a temptation and a tendency in those times to just say, you know what, this is too hard. I can't do this. I can't try to take care of myself and overcome this. And so I really wanted to address this. Connie, you can go to the next slide. So I'm going to just be vulnerable with all of you. At the retreat, I absolutely loved our time there. It was such a blessing and it was such an amazing time. And I not only felt like I just was overwhelmed with so much awe and appreciation for every single one of you women, but just even God allowing me the opportunity to share my story and to share my journey. And even in doing that, like I've walked a long journey in this particular subject matter, but even for me coming back home after the retreat, after the time of rest, after really digging deep and choosing to pursue self-care, I came home to some pretty significant obstacles. And it wasn't anything in the natural. because I've kind of overcome those already. And so that wasn't something I had to overcome. But my obstacle came in the form of spiritual attack. And for me, I really, when I got home, I really felt completely under attack. I felt the enemy speaking lies to me about, oh, you know, I called it on one of my posts, I called it like a vulnerability hangover. You know, Laura, you shared too much. You were too vulnerable. You know, what you shared isn't going to make lasting change. Like just all of these thoughts, right? And at one point I had to say, no, that's not from God, right? I live a life of vulnerability because I want to invite others people into vulnerability. I live a life of honesty and transparency because I want people to see my struggles and my weakness, but then to see Christ in me. And he's the one who gives me the strength to overcome. And so when all of these things were bombarding me, I had to choose what to do with that. And I chose to take authority over those thoughts and send them back where they came from, and to choose to step in and believe the truth. And I know for some of you, leaving that environment, leaving the retreat, leaving the rest, and you come back to your situations, whether it's like a house full of children or a stack full of bills, or, you know, perhaps relationships in your life that are going sideways, things that just are not going the way that you hoped. They come against you, they oppose you from making positive changes in your life. And so one of the important keys is to identify what those obstacles are in your way. The definition of obstacle is a thing that blocks one's way or prevents or hinders progress. And so when you are making positive change in your life, anything that is opposing that is an obstacle, and you need to overcome that. And some of the ways that obstacles will show up is in opposition. Those could be people, if you're setting up new boundaries, that's people who don't like your new boundaries and they're pushing back. They are not comfortable with the things that you're putting in place. One really, really huge thing for me was limiting beliefs. When I was journeying through my self-care journey and learning how to really care for myself, I had a lot of limiting beliefs. And one of mine was the belief that if I took care of myself, I was actually being selfish. Another one was that if I didn't do everything for everyone else, that it wouldn't get done, or that someone else would, you know, be mad at me or would somehow be negatively impacted, right? And all of these thoughts, all of these beliefs, they kept me for years, for 30 years, from making any changes in my life. Another obstacle could be lack of self-esteem. You might be saying to yourself, well, who am I? I can't do this. You know, I'm, and if you've partnered with lies, you might even think, well, I'm just this little itty bitty person. I don't deserve this. I don't have the right to this. And none of those things are true, but that might be your obstacle that you need to overcome. You might also prioritize the needs of others. That's an obstacle. Or another way of looking at it too is maybe you have people in your life who have significant needs, you know, whether it's an ailing mother or father, or maybe it's a special needs child, or maybe it's extended family issues. There's always people in our lives that need more help. They need more care. They need more assistance. And so sometimes that might be an obstacle to us finding help. Finding self-care in our life. But those are things that you can overcome. One way you can overcome that one is to ask for more help. Ask for more people to step into a place of caregiving so that you can have more margin to take care of yourself. Another obstacle might be a lack of margin. And I know in previous webinars, we've talked about this, how, you know, just like on a sheet of paper, there's margins, right? You need space in your life for taking care of yourself. You need space in your life for those extra things that show up all of a sudden, right? Because when we don't have margin in our life, we're not able to to take time out. We're not able to really do the things that we need to for ourselves. Another thing is busyness. And we wrote down here self-inflicted because, to be honest, a lot of times the busyness we go through, we've created it ourselves, right? We've said yes to too many things. We've gotten involved into too many things, or even sometimes, you might take a night out. You might say, you know what, I'm not doing anything today. And you stay at home, but instead of actually doing something that brings you life and energizes you, you actually use that time to just binge watch Netflix. And at the end of the day, you feel just as bad or worse than you were before, because that didn't meet your need. That didn't care for you in your physical, emotional, or spiritual well-being. And so sometimes we can get caught up in just keeping ourselves busy so we don't have to really look at ourselves, not look at what we need. And so I would encourage you that if that is one of your obstacles, set limits for yourself. Maybe you only watch shows one day a week or something like that, and you leave the other evenings of the week open to stuff that would be more life-giving to you, that would really create a life of self-care. And then there's distractions beyond the needs of others. And those can include, work distractions, commitments, things that come up in the spur of a moment, like death in a family. And you would think to yourself, well, that's not really something I have control over. That's not something that I can really choose self-care in. But I'll use an example from my life. This week, we've had a death in my family. And there's a lot of needs associated with this situation. It was sudden death. It was very unfortunate events. I can't get into the description of it, but the point is they need help, right? And the old Laura would say, you know what, I can help. I can help do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. And I would overextend myself. But I know that that's not my place, right? And so I had to even, there's that thought in my head, well, their family, this is a huge struggle, this is a huge burden, but I know that I can't take it on myself. And so I will be there to support the rest of the family, to pray for them. I'll be at the funeral, but that's as far as I can go. I can't give more than that in this season. And so, even with that, sometimes when things come up like that, if we allow it to distract us from what we're supposed to be doing, then we won't be able to care for ourselves or the people in our life in our particular area of need. So this scripture, I really wanted to point out to you. I'm on here, it's just the 2 verses, but I'm going to read the whole passage because it is so powerful and it speaks very clearly to what I want to share tonight. So you're just going to see the 2 scriptures up here, but I'm going to read the whole thing. And just to give you a little preface about what was happening beforehand, this is when the Israelites came out of Egypt and they were wandering through the desert. And they started grumbling and complaining and having fights and quarrels amongst each other. And so this is what happened. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people. And they stood around him from morning until evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this that you're doing for the people? Why do you sit alone as judge while all the people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, "Because the people came to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and his laws." Moses' father-in-law replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice. And may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them the decrees and the laws and show them the way to live and the duties that they are to perform. But select capable men from all of the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. If you do this and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all of Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times, and the difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided amongst themselves. So the reason I wanted to share this story was because Moses was the one who kept going up to the mountaintop. He was the one who kept getting messages from the Lord for the people. And so it became this mindset or this thought, well, if I have a dispute or a disagreement or some kind of thing that I need God's wisdom on, I need to come to Moses. But what it was causing for Moses is that literally from the moment the sun rose to the late in the evening hour, that's all Moses was doing. He was standing as judge, making decisions and giving decrees to these people based on what was going on in their situation. And I loved what his father-in-law said. What you're doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out, for the work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. And that's what I want to say to you. You may have taken on the position in your life, in whatever circumstances it is, that, well, these people need me. This situation needs me. And you've taken on so much that it literally is consuming all of your time, but it's not going to end good for you. It didn't end good for me. And I know that if you continue down that path, you'll have similar results that I did. And the message here was that we need to delegate, essentially. We need to pass off things that aren't essentially what we're called for. And, Moses, yes, he heard from the Lord. He knew the Lord's decrees. He knew the law. He knew how to apply the word of God and what the Lord spoke into specific situations. And I loved how his father-in-law said, teach these mighty men, teach these men who dislike or who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials, and teach them the laws, and teach them the promises and the principles of God, right? And so when we can do that, when we can raise other people up in our life to take those places that we're not meant to be, or we can delegate to other people that have those skill sets, and we can free ourselves up to do what we're really called to do, that's when we start living. That's when we start thriving. That's when we start living out our purpose. And so I just wanted to share this with you because I just felt like it was such a clear direction and clear picture right from the word of when we overextend ourselves like that, it's not good for us. We'll only wear ourselves out. It's not something we were ever meant to carry, and we can definitely not do it alone. So I'm going to share a few strategies for how do you implement self-care. So the question is, what do you need? And I shared a lot of things that I do that worked for me or that are essential needs for me, but they might be different for you. So the first step is to really identify what you need to care for yourself. Make sure you consider ways that you find rest and rejuvenation in your physical body, your emotional being, and for your spirit. The next strategy is to remove the obstacles that keep you from caring for yourself as needed. And so, like I shared earlier, the obstacles we are all facing may be different, but I can guarantee you that there's obstacles standing in your way, and that's why maybe you haven't been able to be successful at this so far. There's things, whether it be mindsets, whether it be physical things standing in your way, time, there are things keeping you and hindering you from really pursuing self-care. And so once you can recognize what those are, then you can overcome those. You can create, I want to use the word strategies, but there's a new word, there's a different word. Like you can create processes and ways to overcome those things. So if it's something that happens repeatedly and over and over and over again, you can develop ways of, having the right thing to say in that moment. If you have one person who's constantly draining you or constantly coming to you for things, you might need to develop ways of kindly saying no, kindly deflecting, kindly saying, I can't do that. I can't be that for you in this season. And one way to recognize what these obstacles are or what these things are that you shouldn't be doing are they draining you of your energy? Or are you simply doing them out of duty or obligation? Because I know for myself, some of the things I had to let go of, I was only doing them because I felt obligated to do them, or that it was my duty, like that it was just something that I was supposed to do, even though I hated doing it. The third strategy is you need to schedule time for rest and self-care into your calendar. And I also want to make note that you need to do it in every area for your body, your soul, and your spirit, because sometimes we find it easy. Oh, okay, well, I will schedule time to go to church because that feeds my spirit. And that is fantastic, but you can't just stop there, right? Because we are triune beings. God created us body, soul, and spirit, and they're all connected and they all impact one another. And I found out the hard way that when you don't nurture and feed one, it impacts the other parts of who you are. And so when you're scheduling time for rest and self-care, you need to schedule time for all three parts of who you are. It might be a woman's Bible study. It might be church. It might be, just time alone in the word and praying and worshiping. That might be feeding your spirit. But what about your soul? What about your body, right? And so finding time, making time for you to exercise, or making time for you to go on those walks, or to even go and get a massage. Like those are all ways that you can have self-care for your body. And for your soul, what does that look like for you? Maybe for your soul and your emotional and mental well-being, you need to schedule regular times where you meet with a very good friend and you can just share where you're at, share your struggles. Maybe that looks like you joining like a group where you can share your heart. There's many different groups out there, depending on what your area of interest is, depending on your area of struggle, where you can just join with like-minded people and journey along with them. That might be something that feeds your soul. But it's important that when you're scheduling time in your calendar, that you include all three parts of these. And another important thing is that for years I did this. I would say, okay, on this day, I'm going to do this. But then something else would come up, and guess what? I would take my pencil and I would erase what I had already pre-planned for myself. The point in this is that if you schedule something for self-care for yourself, it becomes non-negotiable. It becomes that this is the time that I do this for myself, and nothing's going to get in the way of that. And obviously, sometimes there's emergencies. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about not being so quick to put your self-care to the side to meet the needs of others. I also want to point out that it's important to implement things, in your daily life, in your weekly life, in your monthly life, and also yearly. And I'll use some examples. So I've been having a hard time implementing this, but one of my desires is to be able to retreat one weekend a month. And right now it's turning out to be one weekend every 3 months. But my ultimate goal is that I could do one weekend every month. And it's just a need that I have. And it's mostly because of the life that I live, the close proximity to so many people and not getting enough alone time. But that's a need that I have, and weekly, I meet weekly with my sister and we talk about our weeks, we talk about our struggles, and we challenge one another. And that is something that I won't give up. Like that, we've been doing that for two years now. And there's some weeks where we miss it just out of not having enough time. And you know what? When we don't have time and we miss that, I feel the difference in my physical and mental and spiritual health, because it feeds me so well. I'm able to connect with her on a deep level. We pray together, and that for me is a priority. And so, like I said, when we don't have that time, I feel it. I have a very distinct reaction to not being able to have that time. And I'm sure Connie can say the same. And so, what are the things that you need to be doing daily? I want to be walking daily. I want to be eating healthy food daily, and so think of the things that bring you life and say, okay, does this need to become something that I implement into my daily walk? Is this something that I need to implement weekly? Or is this something that could be done monthly or yearly? And just decide what frequency that you would like to do each of your restful activities. And one example for maybe something you would do yearly is maybe once a year you take a trip. You go on a family vacation with your family. You go away, you book off work, you shut off your phones, and you just take care of you and your family. And so maybe you prioritize that, every September, this is what we do. And you make that, a priority, but also like just something that is permanent. That every September we're going away, or we're taking this time off, this week off, or this 2 weeks off. Implement these things in your life because you need them. And the fourth strategy is be consistent. Even when others push back, when they oppose you, or the steps that you are taking towards a healthy life, don't let others convince you that it's meaningless or selfish. And I know for certain that you won't see results right away, because oftentimes when you make significant changes in your life, things will appear to be getting worse first. But I encourage you, push through that. Continue to pursue this in your life, because as you stay consistent, as you start having small victories, and as you start implementing more of these principles and these self-care practices in your life, you're going to see the benefits. You're going to see it bring you life. You're going to see the positive changes that come, and it's going to create momentum in your life. You're going to be like, wow, I can't believe how awesome that felt. Even you ladies just taking those 2 days out for that retreat. And I know that I picked up a few ladies, and as we were driving, it was like they hadn't really taken rest for how long. And even on the drive there, they were able to take deep breaths and say, wow, I'm already starting to feel at rest. I'm already starting to feel more peaceful, right? And so when you start to make these changes, you might not see it right away, but as you continue to do it, you will start to feel the results. And when you do feel the results, it's going to encourage you to do it more. And I know for myself, when I come back from a weekend away in a retreat, I feel rested. And then it's like, wow, I really, really, really needed that. And then I need to do that more often. I need to, like, that's why my heart is, I need to do it on a monthly basis. Right now, my life is only really accommodating once every 3 months, but I'm working towards once a month. And so as you start on this journey, as you start implementing these things, you will see your need grow. You will see that your desire to take care of yourself grow, but you'll also see that the results of you doing that will change the rest of your life.
Can I say one thing and then
Sure.
I'll mute myself again?
Yeah, go ahead.
There is another side to being consistent as well. Like for those of you who may know quite a bit about self-care and have been implementing it for years, also the side of not becoming complacent to the point where you're like, oh, I've got this under control. I can let a few things slide and it'll be fine. That's the pathway to go back onto your route towards burnout again. And so be consistent even when it's working, especially when it's working. Don't become complacent and don't remove those things, because that's why it's working. So that's just something I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's so true, Connie. That's one thing I found for myself too. As I got healthy and I got whole, I was like, oh yeah, I don't need to do all these things, right? And I started going back into some old patterns, and then I started seeing myself slipping back into some of those things. So Connie, what you just said is so true. It's like we need to be consistent. If something is working for us, if something is feeding that in us, we need to keep doing it. We can't let it go. Like Connie said, we can't become complacent. We can't be like, oh, I'm better now, so I don't need that. I don't need that time. No, you actually do. That's what's keeping you alive. That's what's making you thrive. That's what's driving you to be the best you that you can be. The results of living a life prioritizing self-care. So results, what the definition of results is a consequence, effect, or outcome of something. So if you are choosing to prioritize self-care in your life, the outcome or effect of that, and all of these have that I've written down here, these are the ones that my results. So the first one is I have now been able to pursue my purpose. Before this, I didn't have the time to pursue my purpose, and I didn't have the energy to do it. But now that I've been able to find wholeness, and I've been able to really carve out what is important in my life and what's not, now I have the time to pursue the things on my heart, things that I've always dreamed to do. I feel more fulfilled. My mental health has improved. I have more energy and vitality. And this energy and vitality, and the next one, able to sleep peacefully, those ones are connected for me, because for 16 years, I wasn't able to sleep through the night. And oftentimes I wouldn't get more than 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and it wouldn't be solid. And when you are that deprived of sleep, first of all, you don't have energy and vitality, but you also don't function very well on any level. And so when I started sleeping through the night, my energy and vitality went through the roof. And I was able to, when I fall asleep, I'm able to sleep soundly through the whole night. And when I wake up in the morning, I have energy. I'm able to get up and I'm able to do what I need to do. And the difference that I have now compared to what I had before is like east to the west. It's that far opposed from each other. And so I can't stress it enough. Get self-care in your life, because it will help your sleep. It will help your energy. And I will tell you this, that I believe that when you are pursuing your purpose, when you're able to take care of yourself properly, when you go to sleep, especially if you're not, focused on things that aren't your purpose, then when I go to sleep, I put my head on the pillow, and, some nights it takes a little longer, maybe 20 minutes, but I fall asleep pretty quickly and I'm able to sleep peacefully. And that's just been one of my outcomes from being able to implement this in my life. Another one, and this one is the most impactful for me because it made the biggest difference for me, was healing. I was able to restore health in my body. And for me, that was huge because, like I said earlier, I lived in chronic pain for over 8 years. It was unexplainable, and like no one could explain it. No one could give me any solutions. There was nothing that made it better. And so to walk through a journey of healing in my physical body and to have my physical health back, I never want to give that up again. And so even when I see myself, you know, like Connie said, becoming complacent and choosing things that I know are not good for me, and I start feeling the change in my body, I know very quickly I need to get things back under control because I don't want to go back to where I was. I also experienced health in my soul and my spirit. And through this journey, God showed me the roots to why I was choosing the things I was choosing. The very trauma and the thing in my life that started this whole mindset of people pleasing and serving one another or serving others at the expense of myself. And so through this process, God was able to bring healing and restoration to that part of my soul and spirit that was wounded, that was causing me so much stress in every other area of my life. It also gave me more capacity to help those around me in need. And so when I was able to live a life of purpose and focus on what God's called me to be and called me to do, my capacity to help those specific people, I feel, has increased. There's a lot more I can handle than I could handle before. And I'm able to help them in a way that I never was able to before because I didn't have the tools that I have now. And so walking through the season of God really teaching me these practical needs, these practical ways of implementing biblical truths in my life has just created an opportunity for me to be able to help more people. Essentially, I experienced freedom in every area of my life. And you start to love yourself and place value on yourself in ways you never have before. So what I mean by that is, you know, I didn't always think that I had value. I didn't think that I deserved to be cared for. I knew that everyone else did, but I would put my needs last. And so as I start to care for myself, I start realizing how much I actually deserve it. I deserve to be cared for. I deserve to be loved well. I deserve to take care of myself. And so it really does impact your self-esteem and the way that you view yourself, because you start seeing yourself from God's point of view and not from what the enemy wants you to see, which is that, oh no, you're not worth it. You don't deserve it. All of those things. Well, that's not the heart of God. And so you really do start seeing yourself through God's eyes in terms of your value and your purpose and your identity. Self-care is not selfish. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have. This is the gift I was put on earth for, to offer to others. And so, you know, look at your life and say, what is the gift that God's put inside of you? And what does he want you to share with the world? Because you taking care of you, your mental, physical, and spiritual well-being is going to be the best way for you to steward that gift that God's given you, that he wants you to share, that he wants you to deposit into the lives of those he brings into your influence. And so don't look at this as selfishness. Look at this. God has given me a gift and he's called me to steward it well. And the only way for me to do that is for me to really prioritize taking care of me and this gift that he's given me. And so I want you to even just think about that as we leave today and in your next week. And so, and on, you know, what is the gift that God has put within you that he's asking you to steward. And, you know, it might change in season, but we all have a gift. We all have talents. We all have things that God has put in us, and he wants us to release into this world. And so ask him what that is. If you don't know already, ask him what it is and he will show you. So we're just going to take a few minutes and just do an activation here. And what I want you to do today is I want you to recognize what you need and what fuels you in your life. And what kind of things can you implement into your everyday routine? And so we're going to take maybe 4 or 5 minutes. I'll put some music on, and I want you to write down as many things as come to your mind. And I'm going to share a few. I have my list here. I'm going to share, and you don't have to do it the way I did it, but the way that I did it was I sectioned it off in what do I need? The way I worded it is I said, things I need to be functioning optimally. And I separated it into 3 categories: in my physical well-being, my spiritual well-being, and my emotional well-being. And so some things that I have in my physical section are, I need to eat healthy meals, exercise, supplements, my C balance, using essential oils, good night's sleep, being warm, massages, rest, and going and getting massages. So those are some things that I need on a physical level that keep me functioning well and keep me healthy. Some things that I wrote on a spiritual level are worship, prayer, Bible, church, being with other believers in community, writing, retreats, ministry. And things that stir me up emotionally or in my soul state are stuff like reading, retreats, journaling, having clean environments, being in a positive atmosphere, having fun, creating crafts, and more. So I'm just going to put some music on, and I just want you to think about, what is it that brings you life? What is it that you need to find rest and rejuvenation and wholeness and self-care? And like I said earlier, it might be very different from mine. You might be an adventure seeker. You might be someone who loves to climb mountains. Whatever it is for you, write those things down. So there's 4 keys I'd like you to remember from what I shared today. Number 1, you can't serve those in your life if your own tank is empty. Put your oxygen mask on first. And I think this principle is so important that, I would even encourage you to put something to that effect on your phone, on your wall, somewhere where you will see it regularly, to just remind you of how important that is. Number 2, don't let obstacles stand in your way of caring for yourself. It will literally be the greatest gift you can offer others is your healthy self. And number 3, when you care for yourself first, you will have more capacity to help others, and you'll be able to do it with greater purpose and efficiency. And 4, you may be doing things that you were never designed to do. It's okay to delegate those things to others that are designed for those purposes. And so if you can get anything out of what I shared today, I hope it's some of these key points, to just not let anything hinder you from pursuing this in your life, to recognize the need for you to fill yourself up first, and to not be afraid to, pass things up if they're not serving your purpose. Our next webinar is the last one for 2022. It's happening December 1st. And we'll be talking about navigating loss and family. And I know this might seem like a heavy topic. And so I encourage you to come, even if you are like, "Ooh, I'm not sure I want to talk about that." But I would just encourage you to come anyways, because in everything that we live through and grow from, like God always gives us his perspective. He always shows us, you know, the ways we can overcome or the ways we can process these things. And sometimes, like Sharon brought up today, sometimes family situations are hard, you know, navigating those things, and to have some encouragement and some tools to just walk through those things is helpful, and to also learn how to navigate loss. And loss comes in all sorts of forms, through death or abandonment or loss of things, like even the burning down of our barn, like that was a huge loss for our family. And so how do we navigate through those times? And the reason why I felt it really important to tackle this at Christmas, or in the month of December, which is when we start thinking about Christmas, is number one, I've actually personally lost quite a few family members around this time. So for me, this time is bittersweet, right? Like you think of the people you've lost or the relationships that are strained in this time when you're supposed to be celebrating with family, or, you know, maybe your family is strained. There's a lot of conflict, a lot of things happening, and it really puts a damper on this time when we're supposed to really be, you know, spending time with one another and engaging with one another and really having that close-knit relationships. And sometimes this time of year can be difficult if we don't have that. And so I just encourage you to come out and join in the discussion regarding this subject matter, because I really do feel it is important. And if you know anyone who would benefit from coming to that, please also share the links when we post them up, so that more people could come and join us. I wanted to remind you to come join us on November 19th if you're free. The Southside Victory Church will be putting up a Christmas marketplace of the entrepreneur women of the church, just different crafts or baking or things that might be great gift ideas for those that you love at Christmas time. So come out. It's a fun event from 2 to 4 p.m. And Connie and I will be there. And we just love to see you, even if it's just for a few moments, just to hang out. So yeah, that's what's coming next. And if you want to reach out to us, if you have any questions or want more supports, you can check out the website. There's a contact form on there. You can also email us at info@nosafoundation.com. And yeah, thank you for coming.